Hello, good morning, and welcome to today's webinar. Hello, Henry. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
My name is Stephen. I am the VP of Product at OfferZen, and Henry's going to introduce himself a little bit later. He is one of the product managers on OfferZen, and he's working specifically on the search side of things. So today we're going to be talking about mastering the search for tech professionals, and then in parentheses on OfferZen. I think we've got some kind of generic tips on how to look for devs, given that we've been helping customers, thousands of customers do this over the last 9 years. We have a thing or two which may be useful, and we'll be demoing some of the things that could be interesting to you in general and on OfferZen. So Henry, if you can put the little rules of engagement thing up so that the folks that have joined can see. So folks, we do these webinars kind of infrequently. We're trying to do them more often. The idea is that we give some value, we create some content that is useful to you in your job, and give you an opportunity to interact with us, ask us some questions. We both work directly on the product, feedback, those kinds of things. So we have two features in this live storm. One is questions, the other one is chat. It would be good to see if you jump into the chat and say hi, and maybe tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're doing here, what you're wanting to get. That way I can help mold the conversation to be useful for you. So say you're ahead of people, once you drop that in there, then I know, okay, cool, let's kind of put the conversation around that. And if you have a specific question, you can use the questions feature or the chat feature or pick it up. So I'll be moderating for the most part today. Henry will be running us through stuff and showing us around and trying to give us some tips and tricks. So yeah, I think that's it. We can't see you, so don't put your hand up or anything like that. You can see us, but we can see the chat. So that's where we can interact. Cool. So that's it for the rules of engagement. Jumping into searching for tech professionals. When it comes to searching for tech professionals, the market has changed quite a lot. This was from a recent report from Ashby. I mean, the numbers are just updated, but the story is the same. And basically, it's become a lot noisier to recruit devs. So that's basically what this graph says. If you look at the lilac bar chart, that's the average applications per hire made. That is a lot of applications. So if you think about what it used to be to find a developer, it used to be trying to find a needle in a haystack, and now it's trying to figure out which, my analogy is a terrible one, but which one of the pieces of hay is actually a needle, because there's millions of them and they're all disguised and it's chaos. I'll show you a little bit more about what the chaos looks like. And that's due to a lot of factors, right? There's a bit of a slowdown in tech hiring due to a macroeconomic reduction in investment in risk-based startups. And there's an increase in supply over the years. Once there's a shortage, everyone starts to train up as developers, and it's kind of hard to know who's actually a developer, who's just done an online course, that kind of thing. So the market has changed quite a bit. And if you go to the next slide, Henry, there's also been a bunch of other stuff that's happened where people have now got things like this, lazy apply, and that automates your job application processes. So that's also pretty crazy that, yeah, so there we go. Thank you in the chat. This stuff is happening, and everybody is applying to everything out there. So can sometimes feel a bit inundated. Earlier this week, I was doing a strategy talk, and we used a fruit salad analogy. So I'm going to risk it and try and extend it to this one. So imagine you're making a fruit salad, and you know what fruits you want. You want 5 nice fruits. This is kind of what it might feel like when you're trying to figure out where to get these fruits. Some of them are outside, some are pretending to be fruit. Some have gone a bit crazy, some are actually just completely wonked. And sometimes it can feel like this. Henry and I, as well as Nick, our head of engineering, we've all been hiring on the OfferZen platform recently, as well as on LinkedIn, as well as on direct applications via Greenhouse. And sometimes it's just absolute chaos. What we're trying to do at OfferZen is calm it all down a little bit and give you a more Zen experience. So this was a bit creepy, but seemed like a lot calmer image that ChatGPT helped me with. And basically, we want to give you the fruits that you want according to your recipe, already nicely dressed. Somebody's already spoken to him. They are actively looking. They want to be a part of a fruit salad. They're not going to run away or try and kill you with a knife, although they might look a bit like it in this picture. Anyway, the analogy worked better on Monday, I think, when I was doing the strategy update. But this is what we're trying to do, trying to remove the noise. And today's session, essentially, what we're going to do is try and help you understand the kind of frameworks that we use when trying to find developers in a way that gets you this kind of a result. I think that's it for the intro. Henri, is there anything I missed before you want to start demoing?
No, I think it's good. Thank you. Nice intro. Fruit salad.
Fruit salad. Let's make some.
Okay. Hello, my name is Henri. I'm a product manager at OfferZen. I'm responsible for basically the matching portion of our product, which includes the search, includes applications, which is a fairly new feature, also includes recommendations. So all the things in the product that we match candidates and companies with. And today's webinar is mostly going to be me demoing things and actually showing you what it looks like on OfferZen. But the kind of introduction that I want to make is that most of the things that I'll be sharing are 100% applicable outside of OfferZen as well. It's like approaches to proactive sourcing. It's approaches to how to find candidates when you're in control and you're doing the searching. So that's the type of intro that I want to give. I'm going to switch over now to an actual demo screen, and then I'm going to talk through a bunch of themes and a bunch of tips. Cool.
While you're doing that, Henri, you mentioned proactive sourcing. So can you quickly... So I'm just going to ask a couple of questions as we go, just to try and help clarify some stuff. So proactive versus reactive searching, what's the difference?
Yeah, cool. We've over the last 2 years or so, we've really understood, or we've come to understand proactive versus reactive sourcing much better, where proactive is when you as a hiring manager or as an HR, or you go out and you actually go and find candidates. You go and search on LinkedIn, you go and use like a search on OfferZen, you try and proactively find candidates. You're in control. You're deciding what you're looking for and how you're searching, where reactive sourcing is more where you're waiting for candidates to come to you. So that would be inbound applications from candidates applying to your job that's been advertised on LinkedIn, or recommendations is another example where you're just getting the candidates coming to you without you doing the actual work.
Got you. And using a recruiter, I imagine, would be the same because they're sending you. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So what you're looking at is the search page on OfferZen. This is what companies see when they come to OfferZen and they start searching. I'm not sure how many of you are currently using OfferZen versus not, but the first caveat that I just want to make is that this isn't live, so you're not seeing real candidates here. This is our staging environment. It wouldn't be apt for me to show real candidates here, but the result and how the search works and all of that is exactly the same. So I'm going to give you a bunch of themes and talk about a couple of things that should help you to find candidates when you're looking for them. Okay, the first kind of broad theme that I want to talk about is starting broad before narrowing down. So everybody starts a job search with an idea of what they're looking for. You know that you're looking for senior React devs in Cape Town. You know that you're looking for a mid-level Python dev that's going to work remotely. You have a certain salary in mind. Maybe you don't, but hopefully you do have some salary in mind. You have a certain idea of what the skills should be and what the experience should be. And so one of the things that we recently did is to change our search page to only have these 5 filters at the top when you land on this page. And these are like what we call the basic filters, or the core filters that you really need, just give you a sense of what does the market look like when I'm looking for senior actives in Cape Town, as an example. So what you would do on OfferZen is you'd add a role. Let's say I'm going to add full stack. You'd add a skill. I'm going to say, let's add Python as a must-have skill. And I'm going to say, I need candidates with a certain number of years of experience. I'm going to say a mid-level, let's put 4 there. You're going to add remote policy. I am based in Joburg and I need candidates to come to my office in Joburg, not every day, but hybrid. So I'm going to say hybrid, and then I'm going to select, say, Johannesburg and apply.
Quick question on that. So maybe it's worth clarifying. When you specify Johannesburg, does that mean that we're going to see candidates in Johannesburg, or does that mean that we're going to see candidates in Cape Town that maybe want to work in Johannesburg?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So what this filter does, the location filter here, it says position location. And what this is, it is, where is the job? Where does the candidate have to commute to if they were to come to a office. It's not necessarily where candidates are based. So candidates have the ability to specify where they would want to work. And so a candidate might be based in Cape Town and they want to work in Joburg, and they might or might not be able to relocate themselves. Maybe they have family in Joburg and they're keen to just make the move, or maybe they want you to relocate them. So there's a couple of different scenarios, but what this filter is where do candidates want to work? And as a starting point, you would like to see candidates that want to work in the location that your office is. It doesn't help you to find a candidate that's based in Cape Town, but actually he's looking for a job in the Netherlands. That candidate's not going to be a fit for you if you're looking for a candidate in Cape Town.
Right. So then I might see a candidate, I think in the background, there's one from, it says something Cape. They're in the Cape, but they're interested potentially in a job in Joburg.
Correct.
Thank you.
If you select remote, then there's no location filtering because it's remote. You're saying that candidates can work from anywhere. Okay, I'm just going to add a salary filter here as an example as well. Say my max salary is, I don't know, 95. The idea here is that these kind of like basic filters should give you candidates that are worth looking at. Again, don't judge the results here. This is staging data. There's only 85 candidates in this data set, whereas on OfferZen at the moment, there's like 1,000. But and the data here is junk as well anyway. Isabel Goos is, I don't know, some AI person. But essentially you start with a set of basic filters and they give you candidates that are worth looking at. They might not be perfect. They might not be exactly what you're looking for, but it gives you a sense of what the market looks like. It gives you a sense of, are you in the right salary range? It gives you a sense of like, what skills do these candidates have? What does the market look like at the moment? And as you then learn more about what the market looks like, you might realize that you're looking for a unicorn that doesn't actually exist. Or you might realize that actually my salary expectation is a little bit too low or a little bit too high, and you can tweak that. So starting broadly is a good idea. And then once you see the results, then you can narrow it down by filtering more specifically. And we've got a couple of extra filters here, which is now in an advanced filter section. The first one is candidate location. This is the location that Stephen spoke about earlier. So if, for example, you cannot relocate candidates, but you need candidates to be in a specific area, then you can go in here and you can add, let's say, Gauteng. I need candidates to be based in Gauteng, and then that's going to give me some results. Okay, so that will narrow down the results further, and it will exclude candidates that are not based in the location that you are expecting them to be. You don't necessarily need to use this filter, but it is a very useful filter to use if you need candidates to be based in a specific location. Work authorization is a similar thing. If you're not enabled to hire candidates that require a visa or something, then you can come in here and say, okay, I need candidates to either be citizens, permanent residents, or have work permits for South Africa. This will typically only filter down your results by a few, because most of the candidates on our platform are South Africans and based in South Africa, or they have work permits. But you can add that as well. And lastly, there's also a keywords filter here where you can search for other things that maybe we don't have search filters for. Something that we have seen customers use it for is if you have a specific requirement for candidates to, let's say, have a university degree, you can type university in here and you might find candidates that have a university degree. Or you're looking for someone in a specific industry, you can type banking or insurance, and you'll find candidates that have those words on their profile. Again, this is narrowing down your results quite tightly. And so you shouldn't start with this because you might end up not finding anyone. It's a better idea to start broad, get a sense of what the candidates look like, and then narrow down to find what you're looking for. The last one that I want to mention is under skills, we have nice to have and must have skills. So must haves are the things that you really need candidates to have. You can't hire someone if they don't have any skill in front end if you need them to be in a front end dev. So I'll put in Python, I'll put in React, or I'll put in the thing that I really need them to be. And then other things that would be useful, I would add as a nice to have skill. When we're hiring for a backend dev, we would put Ruby here, and then we'll put Elasticsearch as a nice to have skill because we use Elasticsearch. So we'll say candidates that have the skill would be great, but they don't necessarily need to have this. And what this filter does is it just ranks the candidates that are already in your search results. It ranks them better. So candidates that have the nice to have skills, they will be higher up in the list of the results that you're getting.
Gotcha.
And that's essentially that. That's the basic idea.
There's a question here, Henri, which I think maybe have answered to some extent. But basically, if you're a remote but you want candidates in Cape Town, then what would you suggest people would do?
Yeah, then you would come here, you'd select 100% remote. That will give you only candidates that are looking for a job that are 100% remote. And then you can come in here and you can say Cape Town.
Okay.
And that will give you candidates that are based in Cape Town or the vicinity of Cape Town and looking for a job remotely. Yeah.
So let's say someone lives in Stellenbosch, would that be in there?
Yes, they would be included as a partial match because they are not quite in what you've added here. So they would be, if you would like to find them, you would maybe go a little bit broader here and say like Western Cape, for example.
Yeah.
You can do that type of thing. So again, try and start broadly and then narrow down based on the results that you're getting.
Yeah, so maybe let's talk about that. Thanks. So this basically now says no candidates match your current search criteria, and you mentioned partial matches. Like, how should people, what should people expect to see here, right? Like from a product, as the VP of product, when I see a user seeing a screen that says no candidates, I have a flat panic, right? Why don't we just say we don't have that candidate, but here are some other candidates? Like, how do we think about this search and why are we so strict? Maybe it's worth talking about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that the search, the way that we're thinking about the search is a very like explicit hard filtering service. You're in control. You're deciding what you're looking for, and you put in things that you're looking for, and we give you exactly that. If you're putting in things that are too tight and the filters are too tight and candidates like this don't exist, we tell you the candidates like this don't exist. But at the same time, we have a data science model that recommends candidates to you based on what you're looking for, and that will take a little bit more broad approach. It will know things like candidates that are similar, skills that are similar. So a candidate that has a lot of front-end experience in one skill might still be a fit for another skill, and so on. So you're not in control. You're not explicitly setting what filters you're looking for, and you can still find candidates. So again, just mentioning that this is not what you would see on OfferZen at the moment. This is just because our data set is really small and the data is bad. But essentially, yeah, we're trying to give you what you're looking for. You're in control.
Cool. I mean, I suppose that then segues into the skills section. We have must-haves and nice-to-haves, because you're saying, okay, start broad and kind of move in tighter. How do you think about the must-haves and nice-to-haves? Like, let's say salary. I mean, when I start looking, I always find the people that I really like above my salary range. And then there's some kind of like conversation with HR, and I'm pretty bad at staying within budget. But like, how do we, like, are there tips and tricks, or what are your tips and tricks at least on that for, let's say, skills? Maybe because I don't want to miss people, right?
Yeah.
What is the paradigms we use for that?
Yeah, that's cool. The kind of second theme that I would like to talk about is like being honest about your must-haves. When you're starting to search for candidates, you always have a certain idea of what the skill set should be and what the salary should be and what the experience should be and all of those things. And sometimes that might just not be what it might not be exactly what you're looking for. Like you might not have been honest about what they really need. You might think they need both React and Ruby and Elasticsearch for a full stack candidate, where actually you can get by with someone who's senior enough who can get by without one of those skills, as an example. So when thinking about skills specifically, we would definitely recommend never adding more than 3 must-have skills, because candidates will only appear as a match if they have all of the must-have skills specified. So a candidate needs to have all of those things on their profile, otherwise they won't be a match. They will be considered a partial match because they match one of the things in there.
Yeah, and that counts like whether you're looking on LinkedIn or anything, right? Because what you're not saying is, when you're specifying must-have skills, what you're saying is must have it on their CV. not must have it at all, right? So there's also probably some skills which you like, cool, they've got to have, I don't know, like examples of just base technologies. They've got to have that, but they haven't put it on their CV, and then they get excluded, which is maybe not a smart thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is roles. So we have a whole set of roles that you can select when you're searching. And the interesting thing, or the important thing to remember, is candidates are called different things at different companies. It's not as pertinent with like full stack front end and back end. Those are typically what they are. But especially if you're looking at other roles, let's say product manager and product owner. A product manager at one company might be called a product owner at another company. And if you're going too tightly and you're saying, I only want product managers, then you would be filtering out those candidates that maybe are called a product owner at the moment, and maybe they would be a great match. So the suggestion or the tip here would be, when adding roles, go and add more. Go broad on roles. Like, make sure you add more. A candidate would be included in the results only if they match one of the roles specified. So typically, product management is a good example. Product owner and product manager, you'll add both of them. In design, there's a similar story. You'll probably add both UI and UX designer, even though in my mind, there's a very distinct difference. That might not be the case for candidates. So they might have a different title for what they are called. So go broad when you're adding roles.
Cool. Makes sense. All right. What further tips do you got for us?
The other thing that I'm thinking about is salary, right? Salary and overall experience. These two filters go kind of hand in hand, right? You want someone who has a certain level of experience, but you're also limited by your budget. So you're maybe looking for someone who's really senior. Your ideal candidate would be really senior. They can step in, they can get the job done from day one, but maybe your salary budget isn't quite high enough for that. So these two kind of work together. You kind of having to trade off how much money you're willing to spend for how much experience. And the tip that I have is, on the salary filter, don't add a lower bound. And on the experience, don't add an upper bound. So on the experience, I'll say, I need someone to have at least 4 years of experience. That's really important to me. I don't want someone who's too junior. That's cool. And if I apply that and I see that candidates, within my salary budget, I'm getting candidates that have 8 years of experience. I'm like, wow, this is great. This candidate is better than what I'm looking for. And similarly, on the salary, I would suggest put an upper bound. If you can't go above a certain value, you can't go above a certain value. So, but don't add a lower bound, because maybe a candidate is cheaper than what you're actually looking for, and that's great. They would be a fit. So starting here, if you're finding that the candidates are not quite as good quality as you want them, maybe someone who seems to have a lot of experience and they're not asking a lot of money, they might or might not be a great candidate. If you're finding that the quality of those candidates are a little bit low, you can still bring it in. But the suggestion would certainly be, or the tip would certainly be, don't do this from the start, because maybe one candidate is sitting at 50,000 and he might be a great match.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting dynamics in perpetuating kind of discrimination in some sense, where people have been paid less than they're worth over time, right? And their expectations are lower than potentially they deserve. So I think we've seen this like gender pay gap. We have a lot of information about that in our salary reports and all of that kind of stuff. So always remember that don't judge a dev by their price, essentially, because judge a dev by their value. Because what they've previously been paid is not necessarily what they deserve to be paid or what they're worth. I suppose that's one comment. And then the other one is just, in the current market, some people might be willing to, like more experienced people might be willing to work at your company for less money, which is great. That's just the reality of the current market. So I think those tips are good to understand. Nice.
If you're looking at the screen and you are a dev, you might pick up that Jason Restapi has a very peculiar name. Any of the devs in the audience might just pick up on that and add something in the chat.
I was trying to figure out the inside joke behind Isabel House. I haven't figured that one out yet.
I think Isabel House is just Isabel House, but Jason Restapi is very.
I'm not pronouncing that right.
Okay, I'd like to move on to another idea or another concept, which is
Can I, before you do that, Henry,
yeah.
we've got a question here, just while we're talking about experience. So candidates still come up in the shortlisted candidates who have less experience. So maybe you can just talk to us about how strict these filters are and what partial matches actually does. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, exactly. So on the filters that we have, on most of the filters actually, we have a little bit of a buffer. So there's a little bit of a wiggle room around it, a little bit, to make sure that we don't exclude candidates that might be a good fit, even though they're not exactly that. And so if you're searching for a certain level of experience, we'll add someone who has maybe a 1 year less in the results, and we'll add them as a partial match. We'll show that they are not an exact match, they're not perfect, but you should maybe consider them, and they'll come up with a little banner. I'll just scroll down to see if I have a banner somewhere here. Oops. Staging, doing its thing. Never mind. There's a little banner that shows you it's a partial match, and it's even you're even here. Look at that. There's a banner that shows it's a partial match and it's not an exact match. The other thing that I wanted to mention, scrolling back up, is that it's important to note that this filter is overall experience. So it's filtering on like seniority of the candidate, not on how many years of experience they have in the role or the skill you're looking for. And that is something that we have heard a lot of feedback from and that we're considering adding in the future. At the moment, you can't search for kind of someone who has 6 years of a React experience. You can't do that at the moment on OfferZen. You can on LinkedIn, but this is overall experience. So you might see someone who has a lot of overall experience, enough overall experience, but not enough experience in the role that you're looking for or the skill that you're looking for. Cool.
Thanks.
Okay. The next kind of theme that I want to talk about is working methodically. So basically, we know that when you're sourcing, there's probably quite a lot of candidates. Depending on what your search looks like, you might find a lot of matches. This example, okay, I don't have a lot of things set up here, but let's say the candidates that I found in my search looked like this: 48 matches and 13 partial matches. 48 candidate profiles or 48 CVs is a lot to work through, and it takes a lot of time. So we know that that's a thing, and we want to make it easier for you to kind of shortlist and find the ones you're looking for easily. So we would definitely recommend, and this is true for outside of OfferZen and on OfferZen, recommend like working through the potential matches kind of quickly and just shortlisting the ones that you think might be a match. And you can do this directly from this list. So this list, these cards are designed to give you just about enough information to kind of give you a sense of, I think this might work, or I think this might not work. And so the idea is definitely to kind of go through these cards, the search results that you have, all 48 of them, really quickly, relatively quickly, and making a call on whether you think they might be a match or not. You don't have to confirm yet, but what you can do is you can shortlist them. On OfferZen, what we call shortlisting is favorites, and you can favorite each candidate. You can click here and you can favorite them for a specific position, or you can just favorite them for no specific position and they are then shortlisted. You can do that. And the other thing you can do is you can hide candidates. So if you scroll past and you're like, whoa, this candidate is really not a good match for what I'm looking for, you can hide them and then they won't appear in the list anymore. It just makes the kind of big group of candidates that you have to work through smaller and simpler. So definitely using those two things would be great. And if you have shortlisted them, then you can go to your favorites tab. Maybe after you've gone through all 48 quickly, you can go to your favorites tab, you can find all the ones that you have favorited, and you can either filter by yourself or by the position that you filtered for, and then you can click into the actual candidate profile, read the full profiling, make a call. You can speak to your hiring manager or whoever you need to speak to kind of make a call. And if you're happy, then you can reach out with an interview request. So the sense of working methodically through all of them quickly, shortlisting, and then moving forward from there, and hiding the ones that you feel are definitely not a good match, just reduces the cognitive load of, wow, there's 48 CVs that I need to work through. don't know if there are any thoughts or questions from the audience on that.
I haven't seen anything in the chat. I think everyone's burning their roses or something. Listening on the earphones. But yeah, it makes sense to me. Just okay, so we're hiding, I mean, we're moving people into favorites and then we're working this process. And when you said working with your hiring manager, just once you click on the thing again, then it shows you the ones you favorited. And then the feature that I like to use was this team notes thing, just to ping people, and you can add mention people there. So that's, and you can also add mention your AM. So everybody has an account manager, and if you're not sure, then you can just say, hey, what do you think of this candidate? Or yeah, can you maybe help me find candidates like this one? This one's really good, or whatever. These notes I think are quite useful. At least I found them useful when we were hiring.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. And then the kind of last bit that I want to touch on is I would call like creating a weekly cadence. This might not be weekly off of OfferZen, but on OfferZen, we're very strict on the weekly thing. We have batches of candidates going live or becoming available in this list every week, new candidates. So some candidates will recycle and come back after months or X amount of time. They will come back and be in the pool again. But you have a certain set of candidates, new candidates, going live on OfferZen every week. Because of that, the suggestion is to make sure you just come and get on here every week and just come and check out the new candidates. It's also a way to make it really make the overwhelm, the huge amount of candidates that you need to work through smaller. Because if you're just reviewing the new candidates every week, then you never have to work through the big batch because you have smaller subset of them. You've already reviewed last week's new ones. You're already good. You know which ones of them you've favorited. You've sent an IR to some of them and you've hidden some of them. So how we do that on OfferZen side is we have a batch email, call it a batch email. It's a weekly email that goes out on a Monday morning, informing company members that the new batch of candidates is now live on OfferZen. If you have positions set up, we'll talk about positions in a bit, it will also notify you of candidates that might be a match for those positions in the email. And you can then navigate from there, draws you back into OfferZen, and you can see those specific candidates, or you can come and search, or you can come and do your thing. So basically coming in every week using this filter, which is called new candidates only, that will filter this entire list down to only the candidates that are new this week. And that makes the process of finding candidates so much easier. You can, within a relatively small amount of time, call it a half an hour or something, you can make a call on, are there new candidates for me that I'm looking for this week? Yes, cool, I favorited, I've IR'd, I've hidden, or no, and then you can go on with the rest of your week. So the new candidates filter is definitely something that I would suggest.
Yeah, I think on the weekly cadence stuff, so as a technical person or someone who's essentially a hiring manager as opposed to a recruiter, it's quite a different, hiring is a different thing. It's not your job, it's not your day job, it's not something you wake up every day and you think about hiring, because you've got to do your day job as well, right? And every day that you're hiring and doing your day job is expensive because you're multi-threading and you're less focused and all that kind of stuff. For those engineering managers and makers that are hiring, I can't stress enough how valuable this weekly cadence can be. So setting up like the Monday to do the sourcing and do it with discipline, quickly morning, like DSU daily stand up on the Tuesday to run through them with somebody external, like maybe your recruiter or a partner or your hiring buddy, and just running that thing with discipline, regardless of whether it's on or off OfferZen. I think that's really a good way to make hiring not feel anxiety inducing. At least in my experience, I often feel like, oh, I've got to do that review, and you keep pushing it down the road, and it kind of builds up, and it makes life a bit stressful. So sticking to those weekly cadences and building them around your sourcing habits, highly suggest that.
Yeah, we also have very good data on OfferZen that the companies that do this, they are winning on OfferZen. They are finding the candidates, they are making the placements because they have a good rhythm. They're not overwhelmed by the huge amount of candidates out there.
And there's also an interesting dynamic that we've seen on OfferZen for those that are interested, is that good candidates get attention pretty fast, right? So if you're waiting 3 weeks, these candidates will have interview requests already. So it's good to come in on the Monday when that new batch comes live and make sure that once a candidate has 4 or 5 interviews or 3 or 4 interviews set up, and they get another interview message, the natural inclination is to be like, okay, maybe, I'm busy with these other people. So it's important to get in there pretty quickly.
Cool. Okay, I want to deviate a little bit from the search in order to tell you about these things called saved searches. So saved searches are preset filters for your positions. So I want to just quickly run through positions to tell you what they are so that you can understand saved searches. On OfferZen, we have these things called positions, which are basically the job specs. It's the thing you're hiring for. It's the roles you're trying to fill, and you might create how many ever you want to. And on each of these positions, you fill in the role requirements. You fill in what you're looking for. Front-end engineer, X amount of years of experience, skills, etc., similar to the search. When you create a position on OfferZen, you get these things. These buttons appear here. And for each position, you have what we call a saved search. So if I click on the saved search, there is a certain set of filters that are already set. Now I can make changes to what is on what these filters are, and I can do that, and I can save it. And if I save it, it's saved to this saved search. And what that means is next week when I come back and new candidates for my front-end dev role, I can just come to the search page, click on here, click new candidates, and I can see the short list of candidates that I need to work through on that day. So it just makes it simpler to get going because you already have the filters set up. You don't need to come and think about what these filters need to be every time. So you can really just get going quickly. So it's coming from this concept of positions, and Stephen will talk a little bit more about positions in a second, but the positions is really core to OfferZen. You saw that in the intro video as well. What you're hiring for as positions is pretty core because once you create a position, we have a bunch of other value adds. So once you have a position set up, we also have recommendations that are candidates that are being recommended to you based on a data science model, based on your interactions with candidates and what you're looking for. So these candidates are being recommended to you and you can very easily find them here without having to search every week. The other last thing that I want to mention as sort of a bonus is that when you're creating a position, we have this thing called publishing positions. And this is a feature that we added last year where companies can now publish their positions onto a job board and candidates, OfferZen candidates can see those positions and they can apply directly to you on OfferZen, thereby making it even simpler to find candidates that have high intent to hire to come to your company. So it's a better experience than on LinkedIn, which Stephen will talk about a bit now, but certainly publishing your position is something that we really recommend companies do because it gets you candidates that are looking for the job that you're advertising. Okay.
Nice.
Last point from my side, unless you have something to say, Stephen.
No.
Okay. The last thing from my side is just to take note that I kind of alluded to this earlier, but you might not know exactly what you're looking for at the start. And as you interact with candidates, as you're searching, as you're interacting more with the market and the candidates that are available, you will get a better sense of what the right salary is that you're looking for, what the right skills are that you really need, what the right level of experience are in your budget, things like that. Once you get to learn those things, it's important to keep refining. So keep refining your search, the saved searches that you have, make updates to them, change things, save it. Next time you come back, you've got the right candidates again. Similarly, make changes to your positions and make sure that your positions are up to date so that they are reflecting what you're hiring for as you come to learn more things. So keep refining is definitely something that that I would recommend. And it's because the market isn't static, right? The market changes, candidates come and go, and it's not a black and white thing. Recruiting is never a black and white thing where this is what I'm looking for. There are 5. I'm just going to pick one of those 5. It's never that. It's more of a dynamic, engaged experience that you're looking for.
Yeah, and I think that dynamic that I mentioned earlier of the good people go fast happens is a reality of it. So what you see today on OfferZen is not what you're going to see next week, Monday, and maybe not even next week, Friday, because the good people turn their profiles off because they get so much attention. So cool. Thanks, Henry. Should we move on to a little bit of a summary?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So I'm going to do a quick summary, and then I've got something else that I want to show you afterwards. So just want to play it back to you. This is the notes that I made this morning. So we've got start broad, narrow it down, right? So then you get to get a feel for what filters you want to apply as the next layer, right? So you start very broad. You see a whole bunch of stuff. You go, I'm feeling this. I'm not feeling that. That's generally the first one, right? Then consider your options and being honest with your nice to have and your need to have. Remembering that anyone that you filter out too aggressively means a potential missed opportunity, both for that candidate and for you. And so you want to make sure you're giving people the chance that they deserve and not making any assumptions. It's much better to add those strict filters once you've processed quite a few. You've spoken to a couple of people, you start to go, I actually need to move up an experience bracket, or these people are too experienced. I want someone that I can mold, therefore let me do that. But make that opinion later once you've spoken to some folks, I think is generally the advice. Work methodically. I mentioned that in quite some depth. It's worked for me, and I've seen it work for many companies. And viewing each week, keeping refining that thing, and then applying those filters to tighten it down. Pretty important to try and keep the noise out of the system, right? So if every week you're moving people from search to favorites, from favorites to interview request, doing that with discipline, it can make the whole experience a lot more zen, as we like to say. Is that a fair reflection, Henry?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Cool. And then I wanted to talk about published positions because this is relatively new and we kind of launched it quietly. I want to talk a little bit about it now because we've got some big plans for it. So you may think you guys are crazy. You just told me that recruiters are inundated with applications, and now you're telling me that I should have published a position on OfferZen and get applications. Like, you guys are mental. That doesn't make any sense. And on the face of it, it doesn't. But what does really work in this world is that when people show intention both ways, there's always a good opportunity to create a match over when people don't show intention both ways. There's an app called Tinder. It does this. It says, I like you, and the other person says, I like you. And then they say, hey, there's a match. You both want each other, which is fantastic. So you don't want to be chasing a fruit around the bed, the kitchen, because he doesn't want to jump in the fruit salad. You want fruit that are in for it, So applications have a very useful dynamic to them. The problem with them is this amount of noise. So on OfferZen, we've got applications, but they are subject to all of the quality controls that OfferZen has always had, with some benefits. So if you're on the next slide, Henry, the nice thing about publishing positions is that they go out to the OfferZen passive candidate base. So yes, we said, look, there's, we don't want more volumes, but on OfferZen in any given week, there's only so many people, right? So if you're hiring for a niche role, live candidates may or may not be there during that week, but the passive base is a lot bigger. Now, passive base is anybody on that has been accepted on OfferZen before, right? So they've come onto OfferZen, they've been accepted by OfferZen curation. So they're already pre-screened for quality. So the nice thing about these things is they go out to both the live candidates and the entire base, and they get these job alerts emails. And the nice thing about the job alerts emails is they're pre-matched. So I don't just get all jobs. I get jobs that are only specific for me. And I can only see the jobs and only apply to the jobs that we have pre-matched you with, which is very different to what else is out there. And we'll also be launching at some point in the near future a job directory for the wider OfferZen audience, because the same concept applies. If there's somebody who doesn't have who doesn't necessarily want to go into OfferZen, they're a very good dev. Last time they were on OfferZen, there was just a bunch of inbound, and they just want to apply to one job maybe. So they can, if they're not on OfferZen at the moment, but they still follow of the brand, they've got the t-shirts and all that kind of stuff, but they're not active in their profiles, this job board is a great way to reach not even the people that have been on OfferZen before, but even those that are kind of just in the community and been watching the documentaries, etc. So that's coming up. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see this is what it looks like for a candidate. So you can see that these are matched to the candidate's profile, and that's quite a nice offering for the candidate. But what it means for you as somebody hiring is that you're only getting applications from people that are kind of pre-matched. So Henry, if you go to the next one, once they're in, they can see this list of roles. And what I don't have pictured here is once you click on it, it tells you what you do match and don't match. And these roles are kind of pre-filtered out. So if you consider, going to the next slide, the applications out there in the world versus the applications on OfferZen, is that if you think of the top one, if you post a job, right, anybody who has access to the internet can apply to it, and that AI stuff is real, they will be applying, and the job description will be AI and blah, blah, blah. It's pretty rough. And you saw on the previous Lazy Recruiter, or whatever the platform was called, they also allow you to automatically apply to all the jobs on LinkedIn. So, you might say, okay, well, I'm going to go to LinkedIn because it's more curated. It's not really. It's still very automatable. But then if you start thinking, okay, well, I want less noise in the system, anybody that applies to you on OfferZen has been through OfferZen curation. So they've checked that they're a developer, that they're not a time waster, that they've got some kind of experience in software development. So they have to pass that, and only 25% of people get through that. Then after they pass that, our talented team speaks to them. They have to speak to a real human, which is, currently not super easy for AIs, but maybe in future, in the not so distant future, might be there. And that human has spoken to them and said, listen, are you really wanting to be in the fruit salad? Are you really in the market? Not just looking around, because OfferZen is a platform for high intent people that are looking for work. And let me look through your profile. Or your salary expectations are maybe a bit off against benchmark. You said you want to start a job. It doesn't say that in your they've worked with this person. It's not ChatGPT just making up whatever looks like the job will, a lot of people will take a job description and go, make me a CV that matches it, right? Like, that's not what you want in your applications inbox. So once they've done that, then they go live, and there's like a 20-30% drop off there. And then they're pre-matched against your job. So people can't apply to jobs that are completely out of there. They won't even see them. That are completely out of their sync. So if you think of the difference between applications that you get just posting a job on OfferZen, on LinkedIn or on the internet, versus what you would get on OfferZen, we believe that it cuts out a lot of this noise. And as I said, we've been hiring recently, and when we were out of applications on OfferZen and we had to move over to our inbox greenhouse, I think we use, it was actually a little bit of a sinking feeling, and Henri shared some shocking statistics of how many CVs we had to go through to actually find good quality. So if you are on OfferZen and you are sourcing and you haven't used publish positions yet, you can just go to that little button, publish the position, and then it gets sent out to kind of the passive base, and you can start getting these great applications. So I just thought it worth adding that, because when we were hiring, we found this thing very useful, which I think is always a good sign as product people. So if you haven't tried it yet, give it a shot, and we would love to know what you think. Our email addresses are Stephen at OfferZen.com and Henri at OfferZen.com. So pretty easy if you want to chat to us and give us some feedback, and we'll ask us some questions. And yeah, I think that's it for the publish positions thing. So we hope that Henri and I have given you some useful things to think about when searching for software developers. It is a fruit salad nightmare out there sometimes. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, come on to OfferZen, talk to your account manager. And if you are using OfferZen and there are some things that make you feel like it's fruit salad nightmare, even on OfferZen, then let Henri and I know. That's our job, is to try and make it feel less noisy and easier to use. So we'll have a couple more of these. We'd also really appreciate your feedback if you want to shoot it to us on how useful the session was. We're doing these to be useful for no other reason, so your feedback is critical. So thanks everyone for taking the time out. Thank you, Henri, for spending the time with us. And we'll see you at the next one.
Cool, thanks.
Cheers, everyone.